Ivy Valentine subscribes to Mark Yoon, so should you. Enjoy your treat!
Okay, so what I want to talk about today is unfair comparisons. And I know a lot of you are going to roll your eyes in the back of your head as soon as I mention that, because you've probably seen a lot of the stuff that's going on online, especially between like Sparking Zero and weirdly enough FighterZ, instead of something that's like more down its alley like Xenoverse 2. I have seen some comparisons with that also, but I've seen comparisons go all the way back to saying that like Tenkaichi 3 looks better than Sparking Zero. So let's just go into this and a little bit of my opinion sprinkled in there as well. So the things that I've been seeing are egregious. I've been seeing, especially on Facebook, I've been not really arguing with people, but just like trying to point certain things out, and according to the ratios of up likes to other likes, I'm pretty sure that like most people agree with me, but I just want to make this clear. I've been seeing a screenshot going around of Kefla in doing her ultimate attack in Xenoverse 2, in FighterZ, and in Sparking Zero, and the comparison is saying that stuff looks way better in FighterZ than it does in Sparking Zero, and I just want to tell that why there's no comparison really here. A lot of people keep on saying, well, it's 3D, it's 3D. Sparking Zero is 3D, and so is FighterZ, so it's a fair comparison. FighterZ is 2.5D, so yes, it utilizes 3D models on a 2D background or plane. 2.5D, if you don't understand what it is, it's using 3D models to kind of give the perception of depth without having like full depth of vision. 2 dimensions is obviously just like you're seeing things on a 2D plane. We see a lot of those with like old sprite-based games and stuff like that, where it's just a background that, depending on moves or whatever images are background. But for something like FighterZ, we have fully 3D animated models that are on 2-dimensional backgrounds that have some movement and stuff like that. So it's giving the perception of 3 dimensions without actually being in the 3rd dimension. And something like Sparking Zero, like the other Tenkaichi games, is fully rendered 3D, which means the characters are fully 3D, and so is their environment that they interact in. Obviously, because it's an arena fighter, so they have to actually move around in the entire area. So you would need that area to actually be explorable in order for your character to actually function properly. Now, a few of the things that I want to get off my chest off the bat, when looking at the models that they were actually showing, they were saying that there's no excuse for Sparking Zero to look bad compared to FighterZ, which is kind of crap, and I just want to get into why. So first of all, Arcsys is known for, Arc System Works, Arcsys is known for their gorgeous gameplay when it comes to what the characters look like. We've seen this with Kill la Kill If, we've seen this with Guilty Gear, we've seen this with FighterZ. They have a illustrious past of making stuff look super anime realistic and super good, especially in movement and whatnot. Now, I can see why you would look at the 2 comparisons and be like, well, this looks like garbage compared to Sparking Zero, or even Xenoverse 2 for that matter. But there's a couple points of contention that I have with that, and it's not just the 3D space, though I will get to that. The first point of interest is FighterZ launched with 21 characters, and Sparking Zero is launching with 164 characters. So even though it's not confirmed, that's like what we're going with. So we have 164 different models versus 21 with a similar time frame of development, like we're talking 3 years. So I don't understand why they don't get that a team that's working on 21 characters versus 164 characters, the 21 are going to look far better. Now, of course, they've added stuff through DLC and whatnot, but that's extra development time, so we're just going based on base roster. And also, the image in question they're talking about is a Kefla from a super early build that was like before the first like demo. So I don't really get why they are comparing these 2 things, and lighting has a lot to do with it too. It's not just like shaders that are on the models themselves or textures or anything. It has to do a lot with lighting. And I want to get into a little bit of that real quick now too. So in the 3D environment, the reason why lighting doesn't work as well as it does in a 2.5D animation game is because in 2.5D, you're pretty much script writing what the character is going to do and how it interacts with its environment. There's only one point of light that it's coming from. So you have that one ball of light and you have whatever shadows it's going to cast, and you can realistically depict, or you even using AI, like where those shadows are going to fall based on where they're at in their environment. Now, since like you got to do a lot of wonky stuff with Dragon Ball, like especially with like Goku's hair, because it would look like crazy if you actually did like just a full 3D model and have it move. There's a lot of trickery that's involved in actually animating these things. If you're just doing this off the cuff without actually playing around with some kind of textures or shading or lighting source, then you're going to have an issue. And I think that's where the problem's coming with comparing this to Sparking Zero, especially because Sparking Zero is in a 3D environment. So that area of light, yes, it's still in one spot, but it has to cover a whole new gambit of area. Not only is this covering a whole new gambit of area, but like your character, the computer doesn't really know exactly how it's going to look with the shader depending on where they move. Because even though the animations are set, you're still not knowing where the camera's going to go. You're still not knowing like how you're going to manipulate the camera or what supers are going to do. That's why there's a problem with camera in 3D arenas when you're getting stuck on stuff, or sometimes it's like too elevated above or sometimes below. There's a lot of issues with that because even just getting the camera right is a lot harder than it would be in a two-dimensional game, because all you basically have there is the 2 dimensions, whether it's going right or left, up or down, and then you have the zoom in for whatever they're going to do for their critical art or their level 3 or anything like that. So why I think that those two aren't comparison there is a little bit of mixture of both of those reasons. I think it has to do with lighting in a 3-dimensional environment, it being an early build, and the fact that there's 164 characters versus 21 base. So I think those are the main 3 arguments that I would say off the bat. But then I've seen some weird other arguments come up saying that like, if Arcsys, Arc Systems Works, were to be the developers of Tenkaichi, it would look way better. There's proof that that doesn't happen. Like there's a case to be made against that. So only arena fighter that they actually made with cell shaded graphics, 3D models in a 3D environment was Kill la Kill If. Kill la Kill If looks great. It's a great looking game. I have some gameplay here that I'm going to show while I'm talking about it. What are you noticing though? What's the thing that's the biggest problem with this, with Arc Systems Works making a fully 3D anime arena fighter? There's 10 characters in the roster. That's 10 characters, by the way, including like DLC and stuff. I think the base roster was like 6 or 8. Like when you unlock characters, like going throughout the story mode, there's 2 different story modes playing from 2 different characters' point of view. But you unlock like, I think 10 characters total. That's half of what FighterZ launched with. And they're thinking that Arc Systems Works in the same amount of time, in 3 years, can make 164 characters look as good as they did their 21 characters, or in this case, with the actual correct comparison to Kill la Kill If, 10 characters. Like, you can see where the problem lies there, right? There's not a lot of argumentation to be had there. Like, it's pretty much a one-to-one comparison where they're making a cel-shaded 3D anime arena fighter that's based on a licensed IP versus the same thing that Sparking Zero is trying to do. And when you directly compare and contrast, it's night and day. Now, if Kill la Kill had like 90 characters or 100 characters or something like that, then we can actually argue about that. And I think the only case that we can actually make direct comparisons to would kind of be Xenoverse 2. Now, Xenoverse 2 does have like a huge roster of characters also, and I think it's like 90 or something like that, but like their launch-based roster of characters is much more robust than something like that, but it is 3D and a 3D anime arena environment, and there's destruction and buildings and stuff like that going on also, which is another thing that I've also seen people talk about and question when it comes to Sparking Zero. It's the effects. So when you have the 2D animated game, we have these preset effects that go off for preset moves, and if you know animation or anything like that, it is a triggered cutscene, so it triggers like what effect is going to happen when, during what move, and obviously that happens the same in arena fighters as well. The difference in arena fighters is that there's also randomized like particle effects, and there's smoke animations, and there's your stuff interacting with the actual environment, like mountains falling and key rocks coming up around you, and all kinds of auras and all different stuff that's going on in this 3D space, not in the 2D space. So in the 2D space, it's a lot easier to animate that kind of thing, because you can control where exactly and how exactly it animates, where in a 3D environment, you kind of have to leave it up to chance and hope that the actual engine gets it properly done right. Of course, all these things can be ironed out with more time, and maybe fighters could make an arena fighter better than Sparking Zero if they had like maybe 8 to 10 years to work on the game. But the way that they actually put quality over quantity in their games shows that they take a lot more time to make sure that the models look good in every single angle they possibly can, and they ensure that it does by trying to make sure the engine doesn't like show any of its flaws. Whereas you can't really, like I said, get away with that in a 3D anime arena environment, because you're going to be at the mercy of the camera and at the mercy of both characters who are seeing the entire 3D area of you at once. So it's a little bit difficult of a situation to actually be dealing with that, especially not to mention we're getting into models with like the giants and stuff like that. But I think that's one of the reasons why we also can't compare the two games. So even comparing like Xenoverse, like I said, to Sparking Zero, I guess that would be a sort of fair comparison because it's a similar type of game. And Xenoverse looks okay, but it doesn't look as good as, you know, FighterZ either. Like there's a lot of characters going on. There's also character customization and creation in that game. Every single character has like a ton of costumes, especially at the end of all the DLC, and there's a lot of stages in that game, to be fair, and all those stages have interactable environments, and all those stages like have a different area of effect, and you can see why you start to break down this conversation, and even just talking about from a polygonal level and like a shader level and a light source level, that they really just can't be compared. Like I said, it would be a better comparison if Arcsys was actually doing a 3D full arena game. Now, a lot of people pushed back on that and said that there is going to be a comparison because it's natural for people to compare and people don't know the ins and outs, so they're just going to look at one image and compare it to another image, and that's not their fault, which is completely true. To a layman, that's not their fault. You don't have to be a 3D animator or a game designer or a lead project manager of a game development company to understand that images look better than other images. Like, we understand that, but when you take into consideration what a video game is, all of it really is math. It's all algorithms, and it's like polygonal geometrical shapes, like trying to interact with another geometrical environment according to an algorithm, which is just math. There's things that you can't account for, and there's irregularities, especially when you duck and dive and you don't put all your emphasis on QA, and you're actually not doing testing as well as you should, which a lot of these big publishers don't really like to do. They like to give it out to us to actually test these things, which is another point of contention of mine for them. Lastly, I want to talk about how like the comparison to Tenkaichi 3 is just ridiculous. Like, people have said that Tenkaichi 3 looks better than Sparking Zero, which is just like on its face value ridiculous, because a lot of the environments in Tenkaichi 3 are nowhere near as detailed. The character models are blocky, they're nowhere near as detailed. Even if you up-res them, or even if you're playing with them on an emulator and you're doing all kinds of different things to try to get the image the way you want it, it's made basically for a 4x3 screen on a cathode tube TV, a CRT. So you're talking about maybe 420p at max that you're trying to push out of this image. Unless you're playing on the Wii version, then you might be able to get 720. I think 720i. I don't even think it's full 720p with the component cables. I think it's still interlaced, but correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. But I don't know. I don't think there is a comparison. All of these games have different aspects to them and are different types of games from different developers, so they really shouldn't be compared when it comes to especially visuals or something like that, especially when the gameplay is so different and the algorithms underneath of it are so different. Like, back in the day, we had these arguments all the time with like, what looks better, or what's more fun to play, Budokai or Tenkaichi or Dragon Ball or Super Dragon Ball Z or sagas or anything like this. And most of us back then, when we got to these arguments, would just be like, I like them all for different reasons, and they all play differently, so you can't really compare them. Nobody really compared Budokai Tenkaichi to Budokai. I mean, they did, they tried to, but like the conversations usually got shut down really quickly. Even in the next generation on the PlayStation 3, when we had dimps with burst limit versus like Raging Blast, which was also, you know, from Spike Chunsoft, or Spike at the time. Yes, they both look good for their own rights in their own like areas, but like burst limit clearly looked better than Raging Blast, depending on what you like, because there's a lot of lighting and effects that go into that. And Raging Blast went more of a simplistic cel-shaded style. Burst Limit had way less characters than, you know, it did, and it was still, like I said, Burst Limit's on a two-dimensional plane. It's a 2.5D game, similar to what we were comparing with FighterZ. So even though you're using 3D models, the plane that you're fighting on is 2D. I don't know. I don't really know what else to say when it comes to this. There's like a lot of people that are really just like wilding out about this, and I don't understand why it's even an issue. Like, if you don't think the game looks good, then I guess like that's on you. Like, cool. I'm still on the fence about the game, to be honest. Like, I still want to get my hands and play the actual game, and I want to test the netcode and play online, and I want to see the final roster. There's a lot of things that I'm still holding out for on this game. Maybe if, I don't know, if Sparking Zero had 21 characters, we can have this conversation. But the fact that it's like not only triple, quadruple, I don't know, like what's 164 divided by 21, let alone the, you know, 25 characters they're already working on for DLC. I don't know. Any old thoughts are always welcome in the comment section down below, guys. I want to hear what you have to think about this topic. And before we go, I definitely want to get to the poll from the last video we did about Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. And I said, do you think content creators misuse words like confirmed for clickbait, or is it simply misunderstanding? 78% of you voted it's pure clickbait, while 11% of you voted it's a misuse of words, 3% of you voted they're just trying to build hype, and 8% of you said that you can't tell. And you can see the comments on the screen while we were actually talking about that. I think personally that as somebody who creates content, it is really hard to find a line between what people will click on and what's describing the actual video that you're talking about. Now, you can't just outright lie because that's like clickbait, but confirmed is like a fun one, because if you say this is confirmed when you're actually not knowing what confirmation is, and it's just like a leak, or it's just like a rumor and it's not confirmation, it's like a blurry picture or something, then like it's not confirmed, and that is just an outright lie, and that is clickbait in my opinion. But if you want to talk about speculation versus confirmation, you can find that in my last Dragon Ball video that I made. There should be the Huang video up here, and I think the last Dragon Ball Sparking Zero confirmation video is up here. Be sure to subscribe if you like the content, guys, and give the video a like. It would really help out a lot. And as I always say, I love it. Thank you.
And thank you.